Hello and welcome in. I am Miss Kinghorn and we are back here in Falconer in City Skylines 2. And today we're going to kind of work on some urban sprawl, or suburban sprawl, I guess it really is, in here. But first of all, we are going to start off with this big sports complex that we are adding in this side. So this is just to the kind of left-hand side of the stadium that we built in the waterfront district that we did last time. If you have not checked that one out, definitely do that. I will put a card up in the top corner, so make sure you have seen that one. Not that you necessarily need to see them in order, but I feel like it's just a nice progression as we kind of work on this area and come through all of here. But anyway, it's up to you. I would love you to though, however, into here. So this has kind of got like 2 football fields on it. It's got a skating area, kind of indoor areas as well. And we kind of add some extra bits to it as well as we kind of go through. But I just figured a nice kind of big area in here. I was thinking of doing like a nice big park or like a custom park, but honestly, nobody really is going to use that if there's no like reason to. So I kind of figured, why not just get those in here where we can kind of make it a little bit more of a focal point for everything to come through into here. And yeah, it kind of just adds to that whole kind of sprawl that we've kind of got going on over there. We've kind of got the big hospital in, we've got the Ice Lake Arena and that kind of waterfront kind of nice district that we started in there. I have done a little bit more to it off camera as per usual for me. I came in and just added in a few other bits and pieces as we kind of moved it along a little bit, and also got in a few more houses kind of coming round the corner. And you're sort of going to see I did some more of these after we sort of did some of this video, and then I again came back in, decided to do a little bit more, and then took the screenshots and cinematics in there. So yeah, there's more, because when was I ever going to just finish when I stopped recording? I do not understand these words in here, annoyingly. I'm sure for you, but also for me in here. So this also has a bus stop just outside it, so it's kind of got a nice connective little hub coming through here. I have kind of routed the buses through some of these neighbourhoods as well, just to kind of link some bits and pieces through. And I just kind of figured when we were doing this that it kind of made a little bit more sense, as this was a really nice area. We've kind of got the hospital right next to us, so people can kind of get off here and just walk a short distance, rather than actually putting like the bus route directly outside the hospital, which I didn't think it was quite that much of a draw into there for that. But we do also get in some commercial in here. We do have a lot of demand for commercial and a little bit, well, quite a bit actually, for industry in here. We don't really focus on industry too much today. I feel like that's going to come later on when we kind of do our port kind of harbour area down the other end. I was thinking of putting in a factory, but honestly, it just didn't really, this area didn't scream factory to me. I don't know, we'll kind of maybe have a look at that possibly at some point coming up soon. But next episode, whenever that's going to be, I want to kind of at least plan out the kind of downtown area, so kind of get in the road network, where the buses are going to go. Do we get a subway in or an underground? Do we use trams? What kind of big sort of buildings, government buildings, do we kind of get in? Those sort of things. I want to kind of plan some of that out before we get too far down the road, just so that I have kind of that idea in my head of how this is all going to kind of work in here. I did also have to do a little bit of traffic management kind of before this and also after it. There was just a few things that were kind of bugging me. Like, everybody was coming through the St Thomas industry area, it actually, looking at it, and annoyingly I didn't see it beforehand, it makes the most sense when coming to this neighbourhood. But it's one of those where if they stayed on the highway for a little bit longer, it would have made it so much clearer. But everybody was kind of coming off at the original kind of junction, going through this sort of small little one lane road, trying to get in here, and it was just causing traffic chaos throughout the whole lot. So I have had to kind of put in like a heavy traffic ban to stop people from sort of using that, which isn't ideal for an industry area to not have heavy vehicles go through, but it has to. It worked in the terms of it got rid of all of the sort of normal people just cutting through that way, and we're kind of now using other roads in here. And I've come in and taken off some traffic lights and zebra crossings in places, and I've also used the new pedestrian bridges. Those are a godsend, especially on this road that you're seeing right now. This road got so blocked up with people literally just crossing the road. They were everywhere, so I kind of figured that one out and fixed that into here. But now finishing off from this sort of corner in here, now on the opposite side we do have some commercial, so I kind of figured it would make a little bit more sense to place some of these in here. Now I did not want to basically place all of these individually, but if you looked at the grid, there wasn't really much of a grid, and it was going to be such odd shapes, and there was going to be cuts in it, and it just wasn't going to kind of work for what I really wanted in here. So in the end, I have basically resigned myself to using these kind of the find it kind of tool in there, especially for a lot of the kind of builds where I want things to be overlapping and kind of connecting into each other and things like that into here. So yeah, this area is just one of many examples. I only actually show you a little bit of doing the next sort of neighbourhood. We need a name for this, by the way. This area does not have a name. It is Suburban Area 1, and I do not like that name. So if you have an idea, if maybe you live in a suburban town and you would like to have it recognised or it showcased, then definitely let me know. I don't necessarily know what the city is going to be called. Kind of the overall district, I guess, in this is going to be Falconer, but I'm kind of thinking that as being like London or kind of like Merseyside or kind of Yorkshire, where you have like towns and cities within that. That's kind of what I'm thinking Falconer is, not actually the individual city name. So if you have any ideas, any suggestions, let me know. I would be very, very glad, because at the moment St Thomas was basically a Google Earth or Google Maps kind of spin around trying to just zoom in on a random place, and that's where we come to is actually in Exeter, which is not too far away from me, I've got to be honest. It's probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours kind of drive from my house. I've been a couple of times, but not necessarily recently, and I've probably driven through St Thomas, but yeah. Anyway, come up with ideas, come up with names, suggestions, and things like that. In there, yeah. And building ideas, if you have anything on the Pavlux mods that you think would also work for this sort of city or this build or something like that, let me know. I am looking for some more car parks because I've got some, but they've kind of broken in a very weird kind of way, and I do not like them. So, well, I like them, but they don't work, so I got rid of them in there. So if anybody knows any of those that they could recommend, let me know in there. I'm kind of looking for like underground kind of ones that kind of maybe look like a normal building on the surface, but are actually like a secret car park that kind of thing. That's what I'm looking for in there. So yeah. Any suggestions for those in here? But we've kind of got this little commercial area sorted. Just sort of doing some fine sort of picking of little bits of terrain paint and kind of those sorts of bits and pieces in here, just to kind of make this feel a little bit more realistic. I don't know what was happening here. That was very odd. But yeah, just to make it look a little bit prettier in terms of that. Some of these do have fences around, which was slightly annoying because then they don't quite line up with the road. But hey, that is what I have to live with into there. But yeah. So the rest of this is basically just going to be housing. We've kind of gone back to our kind of terraced housing, row houses in here. I just think this is the most sort of likely kind of housing that you would actually have for this kind of area, and kind of, I think maybe we will probably get some more bigger housing coming through at some point, but I don't know when just yet, into there. But detailing up the back of this, there was kind of this little gap, and I was like, oh, could I run a row through and get a few more bits and pieces in? Honestly, it just was not going to really work for me. So I figured I'll just extend out this kind of corridor. So a couple of episodes ago, I did the kind of path all the way through this sort of river basin that we kind of have, that's like a divide between what we're calling at the moment suburban area 1 and 2. I've placed this path wiggling through, and I actually called it and gave it a neighbourhood name of just like Nature's Corridor, because I figured it was like that really nice split that was kind of dividing these up, and it linked all the way out to like the waterfront, and I just figured why not kind of give myself a little bit of a divide between these areas. So I've just added in a few more trees, a few more sort of details into there, just to kind of make that look a little bit more realistic in there. So we have kind of come through and placed down some big roads. I feel like these are very needed in here. So we've kind of got this sort of big 4-lane road along the waterfront, kind of interconnecting with lots of roundabouts. I'm British, we have roundabouts practically everywhere in this, where we kind of just link all these roads up, and we have also got the big highway exit up the other end. So they do have this sort of dedicated area to kind of come in, but they really weren't. As I was saying, they all wanted to use a really small, narrow path, and were coming over these bridges. It was just getting ridiculous, and you couldn't move, and there was just traffic, and yeah, it became a whole big thing. Into here, this first sort of block, I guess, from the river is basically just like apartments. One thing I've actually used, and I did not think I was going to, for these are Southwestern American apartment buildings, and they're kind of like low levels. They're only like 4 or 5 stories, but they've got some really nice colourings to them. There's like oranges, there's reds, there's yellows. In there, I've also placed out a couple of little plazas. They've got car parking spaces, and I just feel like for that first block, it kind of actually looks really nice, kind of semi-high density. They're not super tall, but they have that kind of feel of being so close. And I took lots of inspiration from this from Wandsworth and kind of Fulham in London. And there's kind of where the whole sports club kind of came in. There's a big one just in there, and I figured why not kind of just roll with that in here. And they've got sort of lots of apartment buildings on like the Thames and stuff, so I figured why not kind of use that to kind of be what I really wanted all of this to kind of look like. into here. Now you can see I have placed down some of my roads. Now these are roads I actually built with Road Builder. So these are technically alleyways, but they are slightly bigger because on one side they have parking. So I really wanted to kind of try and get as much parking in as we could, and I think it was the second episode someone pointed out that on alleyways I can actually add parking into this. So you'll notice I have several custom roads at the very bottom. They are like, parking is on the left, parking is on the right. There is one that's like parking is in the middle. I don't necessarily know why I have so many when there should really only be like 3 options, but anyway, it is what it is into there. And yeah, we've basically just used one of these for this whole neighborhood. In there, I think it's actually on the like right hand side. So yeah, it has the desired effect. It gives me parking. It kind of fits the theme of like UK kind of suburban, where we have these tight little roads and we kind of have parking on them, and you kind of can only use like one side of the road, and you kind of having to like slip in and out of kind of traffic and things like that. At least that's what I was thinking when I was building all of this up into here. Now you can also see we kind of have this castle ruin here. I was thinking of getting rid of it, but it actually kind of works in there. You'll see what we do, but we keep it in there. And I just figured, like, if this is really based on the UK, which it is, we have a lot of these kind of old, derelict, kind of disused buildings that are kind of like falling apart. And you'll often sort of see buildings where they're just like forgotten and abandoned, and like nature's just taken over. And that's kind of what I wanted for this sort of area in here. So it's kind of been reclaimed by the trees and things like that. So yeah, now we're going to start to place in some housing in here. Now I do not bore you with too much of this, because once you have seen me place one house, you have seen me place all of the houses, but I can guarantee you I have placed all of the houses. Now we're going to kind of jump ahead a little bit into here. So I think you see me do this road of Lane even, in here, which is kind of mixing up the houses. So next door you may have a level 5 next to a level 1. I just figured that would be a really nice kind of area into there. And voila, it is now all done. And we are now working on that area that I was talking about earlier on. So what we've decided to get in is this little round cafe kind of pavilion. I kind of figured it was like a entrance into this kind of historic building. And like you've got to kind of go into here to pay to be able to go and take like a tour or something around. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking in my head around how to kind of make this area feel a little bit more special. So in the end, we just keep this sort of what we're going to call a tourist spot in here. I'm looking at all the really big parks. We're definitely going to be using some of those in the city, which is why I'm not using them here. But when did we get Ferris wheels and stuff like that? I totally forgot that we had those, or just did not notice. Anyhow, we don't use any of them into there. But yeah, let me know when we got those. Yeah, it didn't feel right, did it? It just, yeah, don't get attached. Anyhow, we kind of placed down a few footpaths around the area and kind of just link all of this in. Now, it is technically counting as a park, even though it's not officially on like the road anywhere, but I just figured it was a nice little space. And we kind of get in this back section through as well into there, so you can kind of, you don't have to go through the tourist place. I guess you can kind of cut through into there if you really wanted to, but we do get in some more. Well, I accidentally delete the whole thing. And then we get more trees. We get more trees out the front here. I just really wanted it to kind of feel like it was reclaimed by nature and people were trying to like raise money to do it up, that sort of thing. And maybe they have like tours of the old castle on a certain date and things like that. And maybe the rest of it is just like a little bit of a community kind of a building where you can go to kind of meet like your neighbours or your local politicians or something kind of along those lines into there and just have a really nice area. Now for some reason I could not delete the trees inside this until I deleted the whole thing. I thought they were all connected in at this point until I come through and actually find the castle ruin, which is actually in the rock category. I do believe we have the old. It's here. The trees are so completely different to what they were when before I deleted it. So yeah, I don't know quite what's going on with that, but in the end we kind of place this down and it just opens it up a little bit more, and then we kind of place some kind of invisible kind of paths down throughout this, as I say, kind of connecting it into the whole tour aspect of this. It doesn't get too badly used, so we don't place proper paths down, that sort of thing, into here. Now I don't know whether this is probably never gonna actually see anybody actually kind of like walk through here, but I did kind of link all of these up and do like doorways and things like that, so it kind of makes a little bit more sense through into here. I don't know, it was just one of those quirky little things that I figured why not do. And if you don't know, I'm a huge history buff, as well as kind of history, kind of architecture and things like that. So this nice little castle ruin was kind of right up my alley into there, and I really liked that whole historical kind of feel. And we placed down some sort of benches and bins just to kind of make this feel a little bit more nice and inviting area for sort of people to come in and have a wander around. And yeah, that's kind of what I was doing in here. Just kind of playing, having a feel, and just trying to make it feel a little bit more sort of special and detailed up. I'm not going to do this for every kind of area and things like that. It was going to be too much if I do it for everywhere. So in the end, I figured we can just pull out a few little areas where we can definitely kind of get this through. And yeah, that's what I wanted in here. And for this whole kind of area to look like. Now, we do actually place down a kind of a whole nother road. So this other section, you can see the other side of this big 4-lane bicycle road, that also gets built out. I go all the way back with this. And I feel like that's probably a nice point to kind of stop for this episode. But as I say, I did kind of cut out quite a lot of this. It was all recorded. I think I did like 3 hours worth of kind of building this all up while taking like a little break in between, just because I kind of needed to have a little step away in here. But yeah, you'll sort of see we get all of that in, and I was really hoping to kind of get in some more houses around the back here, and I think in the end we kind of get them to fit in. We kind of have to smoosh some builds together in here and get them to the path. What I do is in quite a few places I place down like car parks in there. I've kind of got some perfect ones that are like 2x1, and I think there's even one that's like 1x1 that is like the perfect kind of car parking for these kind of little odd sections where houses didn't really fit into that area. I've kind of managed to place down some parking spaces, and it just kind of adds to that whole area of it being lived in and used and things like that. So yes, that's kind of what we ended up doing into here. But I figured I'd do that off. Well, I think I did that on a kind of a sped up version, which is gonna actually be your only version of that during this kind of video, because I really did not have too much to kind of show you quickly. I just kind of plonked it all down and cut quite a few of these bits out into here. But if you have enjoyed this video, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and you can subscribe to see more. But yeah, I will leave you with this sped up version and the end of this video. Until next time, bye everyone!